welcome to the monthly Parent Boosters session here with my colleague, Dr. David Vandewalker, and myself, TJ Waicul. We're going to be discussing this week, this month, building the culture within a booster organization and within your program. So as we get into this, one of the things to kind of get our minds going and get our thought processes going is I want you to think about how your parents, three ways they might describe your program or three terms they might use to describe your program, and couple that with three ways or three words that the community might describe your program. And that's what we're thinking about in terms of the culture and how your program is represented outside of your walls, and within your walls and outside of your walls, both the people coming into the program, but also your outreach beyond just your building. So, David, I'm going to let you get us rolling.
Yeah, I'm gonna share my screen. It's a great topic. There's so many different ways we could go with this, but I think that the important part that we think about it is exactly what TJ said. We just need to recognize that there is a culture. We don't think about it or talk about it very often, but there is one. People have opinions about your program. There are reasons why some people don't join your program because of their impressions. There are reasons people absolutely join your program because they want to be a part of that. They want their child to be a part of that because of the community insights and what all the chit chat is, right, about what the culture of your program is. They may not label it that way, but that's really what we're talking about, right? And so as we think about culture, I want us to think about there's this mindset's been around for quite a while. The most current reiteration of it is how do we change culture in a modern society and where we are in the year 2023, right? And so it really impacts it. Daniel Pink put it in his book Drive. It kind of frames it in three different key words, that it's purpose, mastery, and autonomy. And so here with Strategic Booster Academy and then also Servant Leadership Association, we framed it in some ways that I think might help because it relates to music programs and how we make it related to our environment specifically and our organization specifically. And so if we think about it from the culture, it's the values of music making and the people that are making the music or supporting the music making, right? And so when we think about culture, what is culture? Well, we think of it in terms of what drives our engagement. It's that motivation behind what drives our engagement and productivity. It's what influences decision making. It's the organizational health that you have. That's the culture. And then also impacts retention. The culture, is it an engaging one? Is it a positive one? Is it something that people want to continue to be a part of? Or do they choose to find ways to be engaged in other things, right? And so how we think about that, the three words are purpose, excellence, and belonging. And so look at this purpose here on the screen. What do you feel like is the operative word for you when you read that definition of purpose?
To me, it's desire.
Okay. So what do we do within our organization that fosters a desire, inspires a desire, right? Well, I think the answer is in the second part of that, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Are we focusing on something that is larger than ourselves? Well, I can do this for my kid, but I can't do this for my kid. But if I'm engaged in the parent organization, together we can provide experiences larger than what I can do. I can get my kid private lessons. I can get my kid engaged in some opportunities to perform at the local community or a little recital or at church or wherever. But what can I do to get my kid to be a part of something that is engaging, that they find pride in doing, that gives them a larger worldview perspective? Oh, I can't do that by myself as a parent. But together, we're investing in something that's larger than what I can do as ourselves. Yeah, or by myself, I should say. So excellence, that's a real tricky one. I'm obsessive compulsive as a teacher, like excellence. I want everything to be as close to perfection as possible. And you may have heard me say this about our booster clubs, but my three questions, no, what we're talking about is where are we? Where do we want to be? How are we going to get there? And I'm OCD about how are we going to get there? How are we going to get there? Once we get there, what's next? Right? And I bet you're that way about your booster club, or you wouldn't be watching this. And so to me, what I think is important is that we focus on the operational words here that we're continually improving. The moment that we get to, well, that's the way we've always done it, right? You've got that band parent, you've got that orchestra parent, chorus teacher parent that's been around for 5 years, maybe 10 years. This is the way we've always done it. Well, are you continually improving because you have that system built into place and you've always done it this way? Perhaps, perhaps not, right? So excellence, as we think about it in terms of our booster club, let's think of it about continually improving and making sure that we're achieving mastery. Again, what's the last part?
Something that matters.
And selling a $1 candy bar doesn't typically fall into that category. When you're out there, I got this box, I got to sell it for my kid. That's hard to feel like that box of chocolate is going to matter. Or is that just me? Because here's the thing, we want parents to be engaged and involved. So with that, we've got to make sure that we're giving them a reason to be there and something that matters. It's worth their time. You make those choices with your family every week, probably every day, right? So we want to make sure we're thinking about that as an organization. And then belonging. Okay, what's an operative word there?
Feeling loved and appreciated.
Yeah. And that doesn't happen often without some intentionality, right? So I've shared this before in some other sessions. I had a mentor years ago who said basically we all have two basic needs: to be loved and appreciated. And it needs to be with sincerity, right? You don't feel appreciated as much when it's a casual conversation, when you're just kind of casually meeting somebody going down the hall and they go, oh, hey, because they remember your kids in band. Oh, hey, that was a great job on Friday night. But if they send you a note or they send you a text, wow, that was cool at the football game, that's intentionality. That means more, doesn't it? Yeah, I think it does. So how do we create that? Well, through connection and autonomy. Now, what do we mean by autonomy? That means, I think of autonomy meaning ownership. If we have autonomy, that means I have a voice. I have a choice in what happens. I have an input and a voice in what we do as an organization. Now, that might be a very impactful voice if I'm a Booster Club officer. If I'm a Booster Club member at large, just a regular parent serving in a committee, is my voice being heard? Is my voice being solicited? Do I feel like I'm connected and I have ownership into what's happening? Or am I just expected to show up and clock my time? Well, most of us say if we can just get somebody to clock our time, that'd be a progress. Well, yeah, that's possible. But if we can get them to feel like their time is valuable and the reason they're there is meaningful and they have a voice in it, they're going to feel ownership. And that's going to be a higher level engagement, a more intense level engagement, and high probability they may bring others along with them to be engaged because they feel pride in what they're doing and they feel ownership. They want others to feel that same way. Okay. So as we think about this, let's break it down. If we want to have impact and imprint on our community we serve, so as a Booster Club, that's our students, that's our parent community, and it's our community within the school community too, right? All right. So we've talked about some of this in multiple sessions, but purpose statement. We have a great opportunity here at the beginning of the year. If you have a purpose statement, are you sharing it and communicating it? I think we should be sharing our purpose statement at every board meeting, at every member meeting. If you have a monthly Booster Club meeting, it needs to be up on a PowerPoint where it's reminding people why we're here, why we're here. Okay, what's our purpose? Our purpose is simple. We're to provide physical and financial support beyond what the school district can provide. Doesn't matter anything else. We're not here to complain about why the school board isn't covering something. We're not here to complain about what should be done here or there. We're to provide extra support to create enrichment for our kids, to create a better experience physically and financially. That's it. We're not the ones hired to decide how that money's spent or what we're going to do with that time. That's hired by the Board of Education. That's somebody else. So what's our purpose? Just sharing that regularly. You probably have one. If you don't, now's the time. Yeah, we'll talk about that in a minute. But the reality is, for those of us who've been engaged in the board level or the directors, we are familiar with it. We can say what it is, but we forget that our new parents, our sophomore parents, they may not know it at all because they're not engaged yet. So the more we can share our purpose statement, then the next part of it is core values. Why are we here? What do we believe at large? What are we trying to accomplish in the big picture of what we believe in as a core value? And then there's several sessions we've talked about this, and certainly talk about it at length in the Strategic Booster Academy of how to develop core values and what they are and that kind of stuff. There's the first large module is the strategic planning, and we'll go into depth about all of these things in the Strategic Booster Academy. But the mission statement is the next part of that, right? So do we know what we value? And that's, are we going back to the three statements of culture? Do we know what we value? Are we communicating what we value? And are we making sure that what we're doing is supporting those efforts, that purpose of what matters? And then the final one is the mission statement. And can we communicate that? That needs to be up there on the PowerPoint slide too. We need to be making sure that we're always being mindful with our parents, that they know what our mission statement is. What is our objective? Why are we here? And then we can use that as the litmus for all the growth that we have. So let's get to the other part. So it's purpose, excellence, and belonging, right? Those are our three elements. So excellence, what does that mean for a booster club? We probably have a better idea what that means from a musical performance standpoint, or certainly our music teachers do. And we want our performance of our kids to be excellent so they take pride in what they're doing and those kinds of things. But what does that mean as a booster club? Well, that means, do we have business models? Do we have business blueprints? We talked about that in the academy, and we've had several sessions about that. And strategic fundraising and different elements throughout the last 2 years in the community. And so, do we have a business blueprint that empowers parents to be successful and knowing what they need to do, how they need to go about it, having the information to be successful in that creates excellence? If we just say, hallelujah, we're so glad you're here, good luck, that's problematic. We're not going to likely get excellence. If we do, congratulations, but that was a fluke, not a systemic, systemized probability for excellence, right? And then part of that, once we have that blueprint, we can match our resources. We talked about that leading up into the summer as we look for holes and gaps. When we talked about this earlier, of how do we match our resources with our job descriptions and making sure that we are working like a small business where we're plugging in people's skill sets and matching them with our job descriptions so that we can be successful in that, because that's what creates excellence. You know, I talk about it as a teacher. I'm certified to teach K through 12 music. Okay, I had one elementary music course over 30 years ago. Now I could do it. I got the certificate. You could throw me in the classroom, but I wouldn't say that's a great match of my human resource to the job description. Okay, so just think about that. Okay, how we do that in the Booster Club. And then customer care. Are we taking care of our community? Are we engaging those who are participating in us and are with us on the journey? And I don't want to talk about this too much because you know, I'm engaged in a lot of these different topics over the years and have learned from lots of folks. And we have an expert in customer care with us, with TJ. So TJ, give us some insights about how we can think as a booster club and achieving this excellence from a customer care standpoint.
So as you and I were talking a little bit earlier, David, I think one of the interesting things when we think about customer care is we might be very short-sighted in terms of who we think our customer is. We have multiple customers within a program. We have our students. They're part of our customer base. We also have our other parents, you know, the parents of those students. We also have the school and not only the other students at the school, but the faculty at the school and the school community as a whole. And oftentimes we kind of stop there when we think about who our customers are. But in all reality, our band reaches beyond just our school, or our program reaches beyond just where our program is based.
That's right.
And I shared this example with David earlier in that if you're not aware, we have a bingo program for our band program, and it meets on Saturday nights. It is a community-based thing that we host at an Elks Club locally, and it is one of our major fundraising efforts for our program and provides the majority of funds for our program. At the end of this year, we have to find a new place to play because the Elks Club is they're selling their building and we need to move on. Well, because we've built such a solid reputation and acknowledgement in the community, the folks at the Knights of Columbus reached out and said, hey, we hear that you're going to have to find a new place to play. We'd love to have you come play at our place.
That could be scary.
It was extremely frightening when the first conversation came up with the Elks Club of having to look out there. But because of the reputation our program has in the community outside of our four walls, that's the other thing to remember, is outside of our four walls, the community as a whole, most of the folks that come play bingo don't have anybody associated with the program. Mm-hmm. It's our parents that work bingo, that help and sell the papers and sell the instant tickets and do this out of the other at the bingo hall. It's their connection to other people in the community, maybe through family members, maybe through other folks just outside of that. That's our customer base, and making sure that one, we're maintaining a good relationship with them is a huge piece, but also that reputation that we've built over time, taking care of those folks as customers of our band and as our program has helped is a huge help for us as we start looking at a big change of we need to go find somewhere else to play bingo now, or else we can't continue our bingo game, which is a big fundraiser for our program. Mm-hmm. This was, we're very fortunate in that we've been able to build that over the years so that it wasn't something that was too much of hard work to try and find a new place to play, but it actually came to us instead of us having to seek it out.
And the other part of that I'm hearing you, TJ, is like you're talking about over a couple of years, which means you've got to be doing something right and something with excellence when it comes to customer care, or your folks wouldn't be coming back month after month to play bingo over that extended period of time. Interesting.
Yeah, very much so. And we see regular faces. It was fun when I shared this a little bit earlier with David, and when I went to go talk to the folks at the Knights of Columbus was on the night that they host their bingo, and going in and talking with them. And as I'm leaving, there are players that play at our bingo game who, have a great conversation, who know my name. I may not know their name, but they know my name because of how active I am with our bingo program and them playing our bingo in addition to the Knights bingo as well.
So when we're building that business blueprint, and then we're implementing that blueprint, we really need to focus on the customer care element. Are people connecting? So it goes back to where we're going to head next in the belonging. Are we making connections with people? Do they feel valued that they're there? Are we communicating with them that how they're playing bingo helps support the program? Are we making sure that they have enough perks in what they're there playing bingo and their opportunities to have a good time? Are we creating the environment at bingo, so to speak, that they want to be there and that it's being nurtured? And so we need to be thinking about things, not about what can we do to make money, but it's how do we create about the focus of our customer, which in turn becomes a huge value add in those fundraising elements, because people have a good time and it's done well and it's something of excellence and it's supporting a meaningful event, right? So it goes back to some of the other stuff we talked about. That's awesome. So our third part is belonging, right? And TJ talked about this already, about building connections and building relationships in your community, but also in your parent community, right? So what are we doing right now, the beginning of the school year, to develop relationships and connection points with those with whom we serve? And what are we doing? We talk about a section liaison as being a person that kind of plays that elementary, I can't remember, we call it here in Atlanta, they call it the room moms, or the room dads. And so it's being that for the flutes or for the violas or the cellos or the altos. It's what do we do to develop relationships in those small nucleus groups that we start building connections that can expand throughout. And then how do we communicate in ways practically, like, are we just always sending email? We think everybody answers email. Well, that people read email, or are we communicating in multiple ways where people actually receive the communication and accept it and internalize the information, but also our tone. What are we communicating in our meetings? What are we communicating in the tone of what's being emailed or texted, right? All those things matter. And then the last one is hugely important. Before we all feel truly belonging to something, we really feel accepted and loved and belong, we have to feel like we matter, that our voice matters, our opinion matters. I think of this moment is of the ownership I talked about earlier. So how are we conducting our meetings, whether it's a small committee meeting, a project team, I like to call them, or if it's our monthly parent meeting or executive meeting? How are we creating those meetings that build relationships in a positive way, that create a sense of autonomy? Here's an interesting statistic that our friend Tim Lotzenheiser often shares, and it's too based on some long-standing theoretical statistic, but it takes 5 positive interactions to overcome 1 negative. Think about that. If you read something that you perceive as a negative text or a negative email, you've just tainted the mindset of that person. What do you think? Are you going to be less likely to read that email or read that text from that person next time? Or are you going to feel a little caution? Okay. So let's think about that. It's really important that we're being positive in our communication. Our tone really matters because it takes 5 positives to counterbalance 1 negative interaction. Okay. So all those things matter. And so as we think about it from how do we do that now, whether it's our small groups or our large groups? And I just want to think about this from an onboarding. A lot of businesses and school districts have what we call onboarding process. When we have a new teacher, a new somebody, you have an onboarding process. So if we think about onboarding, how are we onboarding our new parents? How are we engaging our new parents? How are we giving them a voice and choice? How are we getting them to feel ownership in what we do? So maybe we can accomplish these with 2 birds, 1 stone kind of thing, where we provide 10 minutes in a booster meeting, 10 minutes in an exec meeting, where we give people a chance to interact with each other, collaborate, build connections and relationships, but also share their voice, right? One great way is through the ambassador snapshot, where you ask them to tell us your story, share with your interest in hobbies, and maybe something that you may not know about us, or one of the reasons you're interested in serving in the organization, or why you're interested in your child being in the program. Okay, those are different ways for them to give a voice when you're collecting information. So we call it as ambassador snapshot. It gives us a picture of the adult, the parent, not just a contact information form. Okay, a 6-word story. Can you share your passion about the program in six words? Okay, another one is the mission statement. We talked about that earlier. Maybe you haven't refined your mission statement in a while. Maybe you don't have one. Maybe that's a way that you could spend some time in a couple of different meetings, spending 5-10 minutes and letting them hone in on one element of your mission statement. What does this mean to you? How do you see this functioning, and why? What are elements that we can do as an organization to help serve you as your family and this aspect of the mission statement? Okay. And then another great project is to create 30-second infomercials, so that when you're out on the tennis court, when you're out at the grocery store, when you're at the bank, do we go to the bank anymore? Okay, maybe we do. And so when we're out in life, right? Can we interject 30-second succinctly what's amazing about this program? Because that goes back to what TJ was talking about. The more you do that and share that 30-second infomercial in your community out and about, that's when someone goes, hey, the Elks Club's closing the bingo thing down. We have space. How can we make that work for us? Right? And that's through those 30-second infomercials. So we're ready as an organization to be ambassadors in the community. We can spit that out and be succinct and be effective, because people don't want to hear you go on and on and on. But if you've got it figured out, boom, they can remember that. Okay. So those are different ways that we can interject some opportunities in our different meetings, whether it's the monthly booster club meeting, exec meeting, our committee project teams, where we give people a chance to have a voice, to have an impact and feel part of ownership of what's going on. And TJ, you had a couple of interesting twists on the snapshot and 6-word story. Maybe you can share those ideas about how we can utilize those in our meetings.
So I've mentioned to you many times, David, that I always feel I pull more out of these for my own program than I feel like I contribute sometimes. And the snapshot and the 6-word story are two pieces that I'm thinking about right now. We have our next booster meeting is next Tuesday. And I want to give our exec team homework to have theirs prepared for next Tuesday so that we can share during the general meeting a quick snapshot of each of us and why we're involved in our different roles, and like you said, our 6-word story, our passion for the program, why we do what we do, why we put the time and effort into that. And I think about my wife in that sense as well, knowing that just for both of us, the impact the program has had on our daughter. That's why we put that time in there. I mean, that's 2 words right there. Is our daughter is in that sense there, but for all of us as an exec board to share that with especially as you said right now, and as we all know now, is the new team, when we're seeing the new parents come in for the new year, and having that and being able to let them connect to us on a personal level rather than that's the exec board.
Yeah.
And I think that right there for me is a big one where I would like to see us do that. And so I think that's the homework this evening. Or tomorrow morning, I'm going to send out to the exec board and say, hey, I want to try something next week and see if we can see what we can do to get more engagement in the meetings. And ideally, like you said, give the folks that are there a time to kind of come up with their own.
Yeah. See, that'd be great. If you had that available and then they could fill out their story or fill that out, or next week or next month when they come, spend some time in the breakout for 10 minutes and let them create their own 6-word stories. Last week we heard from the exec committee their 6-word stories. What would yours be? Yeah, those are great. That's cool. Well, I hope that these have created some opportunities for everybody to think about how we engage our community from our stakeholders, our parents, our administration. We didn't really talk about that, but our other folks in our team and our community. And then recognizing that we do have a culture. Are we being intentional to create the culture that we desire and aspire for our child? And maybe you have. So how can we effectively communicate that to the next generation of parents and within to help it what? Continue to grow. That how do we achieve that excellence? By showing continued growth in the organization, and how we develop our culture through purpose, excellence, and belonging. Hope this has been some help for you, and I hope you will join us in the Facebook parent community group and sharing different ways that you engage and how you use opportunities within your meetings, and tell us some of your stories of how you're connecting, how you're building relationships, and how you're forming belonging in your community. Until next time, thanks so much for being here. Thanks, TJ.
Thank you, David.